Hi and welcome to this week's Something for the Weekend. I'm Tony, Sales Manager here at Martin Lynch & Sons, and this week I've popped over to the Kenwood stand and I'm going to ask the question, is the TS-590SG still relevant in 2023? Well, let's find out. Before we discuss the radio, if you'd like, comment and subscribe on this week's video, I'm going to give away a couple of freebies to one lucky winner. Chosen at random, of course, so you can have a Kenwood bar mat and a TS-590SG flask, which will keep your drink warm in the shack. Now remember, it's only for one of you, so get commenting. Anyway, let's take an overview of the TS-590SG and see what it's got to offer. Okay, so I've taken the seats so that we can discuss why I think the TS-590SG is still relevant in 2023. Originally launched in 2010, the TS-590S hit the amateur market with an absolute thump, basically saying, here I am, a great value transceiver with an exceptional receiver built into it. Now, us being amateurs, we played with it for a couple of years, and of course, we found things that we didn't like. I wouldn't say there were faults, because they weren't, but just little niggles here and there. And now Kenwood, being the company that they are, turned around and said, I'll tell you what, give us a couple of years and we'll sort something out for you. So along comes 2014, 2015, that sort of era, and the 590SG was finally brought to market. Now, all of those little niggles were improved on, and as an added bonus, they took a lot of the features from Kenwood's TS-990S and popped them straight into the 590SG. So, why do I think it's not the perfect radio? Because obviously there is no such thing as the perfect radio, but for anyone who wants to operate a simple radio and go back to the roots of actually listening to the radio, the 590SG is perfect for that, absolutely perfect. So intuitive UI, which basically means it's the simplest radio on the market at the moment to operate. I know a lot of you will say, you know, the 7300 is like operating a smartphone, and I say it myself a lot of the time, but the 590 is really back to basics. So whatever you see on the button, you push it, whatever's above the button, you hold, basically, and that activates whatever the function is. Now, coverage, full HF on this, so all the way through to 30 megahertz, and 6 meters as well as standard. Obviously multi-mode, so if you're a CW operator, SSB operator, AM, FM, and of course data modes as well. We do have a little treat for you later on. I may have just asked Gary and Richard to pop on the video as well and show this little 590SG in action. Speaking of other current features, which you'll find on radios that have just been released, 32-bit DSP. So digital signal processing as standard on the 590SG, so way before its time, as they say. And the good thing is, noise reduction is standard, noise blanker is standard, auto AGC, beat cancellation as well for CW operators, so literally you can hit a button and it just syncs up your CW signal straight away. Yes, you know, you've seen that on some of the large radios, but they've always been flagship radios. You know, this comes in at around about £1,600, half the price of some of those radios that offered the features. Now, receiver-wise on this, it is down conversion. And now it also has down conversion, FT5000, for example, from Yaesu. And again, another, you know, £5,000 radio. So, value for money. 590SG is certainly good value for money, and that's relevant to 2023 because look, everyone's having to look after their money at the moment. So definitely worth thinking about when it comes to the 590SG, being a good value radio and the performance you're going to get from it. Now, there are some additional features. One, of course, being the automatic ATU. Now, when we mention internal ATUs, I know a lot of the time we say, no, you need to get an external ATU, or your Elmer might say to you, oh, yeah, you must get an external ATU. Now, if you're running an M-Fed wire, then the internal ATU on this will probably do the job. In fact, I'm kind of almost certain that it will. You know, anything 5 to 1, 6 to 1 ratio, the 590 just tunes, doesn't even think about it. So, current antennas in 2023, internal ATU should handle it. If you're an SSB operator, speech processor is built in as standard, and obviously it's a Kenwood radio, so receive audio and transmit audio is top of the league basically, and you've got separate EQ for also the TX and the receive audio, so you can prioritise your settings for whichever mode you're running, whether it be contest, rag tuning, or any other scenario that you may find yourself in. Now, if you'd watched the previous videos as well about, say, the 10 meter band, for example, and you like to work in 10 meters FM, then you've got channel memories as well on the 590SG. So you can input your favourite channels on 10 meter FM, for example, or maybe you can put in your key frequencies for DX working or your local net. Then easy enough to do with the 590SG. So, you know, that's fairly modern. Okay, now I was mentioning about the UI and how easy it was to operate the radio. Now, of course, some of those features are hidden within the menus, but what Kenwood did do, now this is definitely a feature that a lot of the radios that have just been released don't actually do, and that's to have a performance function button basically, which means if there's a mode or an operation that you like to do, you can then save it to one button alone and then just constantly go back to that, just holding the one button without going into the menu. It makes it, as I said, a really easy radio to drive. And no one else really is doing it at the moment, not to the extent that the 590SG does. So that is a real good feature, and if you come into the store, I'm more than happy to show you those features as well, and you can see how easy it is to drive. Okay, for those of you still saying, yeah, but I still think it's an old radio, it's not really 2023, is it? You probably have to put filters into it. No, you don't. Everything is built into this radio, so it's IF-DSP as well when it comes to filtering. And as I always say with this radio, if you're a CW op, down to 50 Hertz on the internal filtering. So no, it's not an old radio. You don't have to lift the lid and pop filters into it. It just works straight out of the box. All your filtering needs are done on easy one multi-function button as well. So, you know, what more do you want? How easy do you want a radio to be? Because after all, we're there to listen to the radio, aren't we? We're not always staring at it. Okay, so you're a DXer. Oh, there's no second receiver, Tony. Why is there no second receiver? Well, you don't always need a second receiver, especially with the extra features of the 590SG. So there is a split button, which will instantly throw your receive signal or your TX signal, depending which way you do it, 2 megs up. So if they're listening up to, you're there straight away with a button push, and you can just alternate between that function. So you can listen to what's coming in, or obviously go straight to your transmit frequency and keep transmitting. Now, do you really need that second receiver? Probably not. Oh, and by the way, if you use a TS-890S, you can use this SG as your second receiver for that radio. So, little tip for you there. So, let's talk about connectivity now. So, is this radio good enough to compete in 2023 when it comes to connectivity? Well, yes. So, 2 antenna sockets on the back. You know, a lot of the radios you're comparing this to, and a lot of guys and girls are ringing me up and saying, oh yeah, but it's not as good as a so-and-so radio that has the flashy band scope and the flashing lights, etc. But hold on a minute, aren't you struggling to fit a second antenna on that? Well, this one you can do it straight away with the 2 outputs and inputs. Also a DRV function, which Gary's going to talk to you about a little bit later on, which more than anything brings it into 2023, that's for sure. Also USB connectivity, so if you're into digital modes, etc., you can just plug in the USB. You don't have to buy any other interfaces to get this to work in digital modes. Again, if you want to work remote, very 2023 remote operation nowadays, you can do it with this. And on top of that, the software's free. You know, Kenwood have thought about all these things. This was back in 2014, 2015. Now, reliability, obviously it's been out for a long time. I don't see them coming in for repair. Very, very rarely do I see these coming in for repair into the workshop. They just work. They're built to last and they work. We get them used a lot of the time, and the only reason we get them used is that people have gone on to 890s and maybe 990s just because they're loving the Kenwood brand. It may have been their first Kenwood that they've operated and they've kind of stuck with the brand now. But you know, the insight is there as to why haven't Kenwood brought out another radio yet? Well, because they build radios that last and that function for years ahead, basically. A lot of these features in here, a lot of the radios that are just being released, they don't cover them. So, do I think this is relevant in 2023? Of course I do. Of course I do. Okay, so I'm going to take a breather now, because as you can see, I get quite passionate about the TS-590SG. It's one of those radios that kind of gets neglected by most amateurs because it's not all singing and dancing, at least not to look at. But, you know, never judge a book by its cover. Come and have a play with this. Why not come into store if you're passing by, or, you know, make a weekend of visiting Staines upon Thames, maybe pop into Windsor, etc. But come and have a listen, have a play with it. It's easy to use and the audio is superb on it. You know, by all means, we'll make you a cup of coffee and you're more than welcome to spend the afternoon here. It's not an issue, or the morning. Before I go, if you've heard what's been said and you think, you know what, I think the 590SG might be for me, during this month of August 2023, I've got to get that in, sorry, just because obviously the video will keep running. Call up or pop into the store and say, Tony said I can get a free prism cover with my TS-590SG. So there you go. If you want one of these lovely covers produced by Tracy, I will throw that in with the 590SG if you buy a new one. That's not a problem. Now, if you can't really push to the budget that you need to buy a 590SG new, then we do have some used ones, as you may be able to see behind me. And on those, at the moment, you get 5% off, which is a great deal. However, if you say, can I have Tony's 2 on that 590S, then I'll give you an extra 2% off on that 590S or SG. So that's an amazing saving. So that is only, again, for this month only, August 2023. But by all means, that'll be for mail order or if you come into the store. So no problem there. Anyway, let's go over to Gary, who's going to show you probably the main reason why most of you think this radio isn't relevant in 2023 and how easy it is to make it relevant.
So thanks, Tony. Is a TS-590SG still relevant in 2023? Well, the answer to that is a huge yes. The real big advantages, I think, with sort of something like the SG590 is that you've got so much flexibility. It's an amazing radio for those that want to carry on with something like CW. It's a perfect radio, really, I think, for digital modes, especially that it's got a built-in USB function. It's also got an RF or an IF type of output, which you can convert the DRV port to do that, and that's a simple phono connection. And what I've done is I've made a small cable up which has got a phono connection on one end, which then goes to an SMA connector onto our SDR Play RSP1A. Now, talk a little bit about this. These are inexpensive, really good value SDR receivers. They're very small, lightweight, absolutely great for portable sort of stuff. And the only thing you're really going to need is some form of aerial for whatever frequency you want to listen to. But in this case, we're using the same aerial as the TS-590SG, and you're going to need a USB cable and a laptop. I'm using a Mac here running Windows 10. All it needs is a USB input, very straightforward, USB 2. Now, what we're going to do is I'll show you very quickly how to set the radio up. Now, I've made a few little notes here. The first one we really want is menu 85. So when you press the menu button, you'll see I'm already here. So in menu 85, you want to set the function here from DRO to ANT, which antenna, and that is the drive connector function. So we want it to function as an antenna output. The next thing we really want to do is set up the USB COM port speed, and I'm set it up for 115 200. So we will then want to go along to menu 68, which is somewhere down here. There you go, and you can see here I've actually set this to 115 200, and that's the baud rate. You do have some options there, so you can if we go backwards and forwards, you can set it at 57 600, whatever. This needs to be the same. I've just set it, that's nice and easy to remember. And that's pretty much all you have to do in the menu system. Now, the one important thing to remember with this is just here you've got a DRV meter button. You need to press and hold that, and you'll notice just here there is a little star which will appear. and you will see, well, you might see on here, if I do it again for Henry, you'll see that the signal is now dropped to nothing here. And when we press the DRV function, now the signals all come up. And that's basically turning that RF out on and off. Okay, so that bit's pretty much done. We don't need to do much more, if anything, to the radio. Everything else is done on the computer. Now, I've installed SDR Uno, which is a really great piece of software, and it's going to get better. The new version is coming out very, very soon, I'm told. They keep saying it, but as I say, they've been an uphill battle with that, and they've worked so hard to try and get this absolutely right, and they want to get it right, you know, as it's released. And I believe we did a video not so long ago when I spoke to Andy over at SDR Play, and we talked about the software and where it was. So really and truly, it should be coming out any time, really. So fingers crossed. So what we need to do, just here, you can see just here, the tiny little button, it says assign OmniRig, if I can do it again, control to this VRX. You want to make sure that is orange. So you can see here, I'm turning that orange. In fact, actually probably switch that round just a little bit. You need to install OmniRig. And then just here, there's this little tiny window. I've selected from a drop-down list of radios, the TS-590. And then I've selected the COM port. In my case, it's COM4. If you don't know what that COM port is, you can quite simply go down to the bottom here, type in Device Manager here, pull Device Manager up, and then you can go down to COM ports, and you can see here, just this little section here, it says CP210, COM, you know, UART bridge, COM4, and that is essentially that is the radio. So we know that is now COM4. So from here, you need just to drop here, and then select from that little menu. The baud rate we've already discussed is 115/200, nice and easy to remember. The rest of it you can pretty much leave for yourself. So you just say OK, and that is OmniRig configured. The rest of it is down to SDR Play. So all we need to do is press this little button at the top here, and you'll hear that it's actually connecting the two. Now, if everything's gone OK, when I turn the radio, you will see here that the software is now following the radio. Now what you can do with that then is you can take, you know, this sort of window here, and we can stretch that right the way out, and we've essentially got a lovely little display for, you know, everything on here. So, and that is that functioning. Now the other thing that I've done is that I've configured the TS-590SG up for FT8. And what I'll do is I'm going to go and I'll show you how I did that very briefly, and I'll grab Richard because he absolutely loves FT8, and he will talk you through setting the radio and what you're supposed to do with the radio. So let me get FT8 running. Okay, so what I've done is I've configured this now for FT8. So let me show you what I did to the radio very, very briefly. Now it is menu 78 and 76. So on menu 76, I've turned the Vox operation on the USB port to on, and then on 78, I put UX, the gain. I've set the gain here to about 4. You don't need to worry about that sort of too much. It doesn't need to be too high, but you don't want it sort of too low either, I don't suppose. So, right, job done. That's the radio sort of basically configured. Now, from the software point of view, we don't need OmniRig from this software, for this software. I'm just going to whiz over here now to the software. If we go to the settings, we go to radio tab. I've configured it here for the TS-590SG. And then once you've done that, so we select the 590SG, wherever it just went there. And we already know the COM port. We did that with Device Manager earlier. That's now set for COM port 4. And I also set the baud rate to 115/200. I've set the data, stop bits, and handshake here all to default. I've set the PTT method to Vox, so there's no complications at all. You don't need any of the DTR or RTS functions enabled. I've set it to USB, and I've set the split operation to none. We can now test the CAT connection. It should be green. And because we're using Vox, the test PTT button doesn't actually do very much, if anything. And we just now simply say pretty much OK. However, there might be some audio setup we've got to do. So here, in my case, what I'm looking for is the USB audio codec. It may be that you've got other USB audio interfaces connected to your system. That's an individual case yet again. You just want to make sure that what we're dealing with here is the radio, and that is a USB audio codec. So I've selected the microphone and speakers for that. So what this will do then, it will listen to the radio. So anything that any sound that the radio makes, this will listen to directly, and then any sound that the software makes, the radio will listen to directly. Once that's done, that's pretty much it. We can then say OK. Now the software's pretty much configured. Now I'm going to pass this over to Richard because he's a real big fan of FT8, and he will just talk you through the intricacies of using FT8 with the TS-590SG. And as if by magic, here's Richard. He's going to talk us through the FT8 thing.
Well, I'm going to try anyway.
All right.
I do operate it every now and again.
What, once in a while? Or?
Once in a while, perhaps. Well, in all honesty, probably twice a week I have a go on FT8.
Okay.
FT8 and FT4. Quite relaxing for when you just want to be on your own and not talk to anybody.
Is that right? Well, anyway, I've set the radio up, I've set the software up, and hopefully it works.
I'm sure it will. Right, let's give it a go. So what are we on now? We're on 40 metres. We're receiving stations, so we know that the clock is accurate, because with the data modes, FT4, FT8 especially, the clock has to be accurate to within about, I believe it's 0.6 of a second, so just over half a second,
Okay.
for it to be able to decode correctly.
All right. And that's just, is that just sort of like the synchronise, receive and transmit of the messages, is it?
It does indeed, yeah. But
Okay.
if I've tested it, well, I say tested, when I was first practicing with it, I didn't realise you had to do that. And I was wondering why there was nobody on any of the bands. I was receiving absolutely nothing, but my the Windows time was about, I think it was about 4 minutes out.
Right,
And then
okay.
the moment I synced it, I didn't use the software myself, I just went to one of the sites like
The atomic
Clock in Teddington.
Yeah, that's the one. I remember
Synced
doing
it, and then suddenly the whole left-hand side became awash with signals.
that. Fair enough.
Right. Well, at the moment we're watching this is the WSJT-X, which is the software that's mainly used for these modes. We're watching this on the screen. It shows us on the left-hand side here. It shows us these are the stations that we're actually receiving.
Okay.
On the right-hand side, it's actually blank at the moment. This would be our transmissions and also
Okay.
people coming back to us. Below that, we've got the frequency we're operating and the band. As you change bands, it changes the frequency for you. So at the moment, we're on 40 meters, but if we wanted to change to 20 meters, that'll be 14.074, and it would just change over. We'll leave it on 40 for now because we've got the radio set up for 40.
It will go automatically over there. We can retune. That's not a problem.
All right. Okay, well, we'll have a look at it then. So we go from 40 up to 20 meters. There we are. So it's jumped across.
Yep.
The radio has changed frequency as well. It's followed us.
Okay, I'm just going to tune slightly off just for a second while I tune. I'm just going to press and hold that, and that should be tuned. So we'll go back to 14.74.
Yeah.
In fact, you could just press the button and it'll do it automatically.
There we go. And we'll do a quick test on here with the tune to see what the SWR is like.
Okie dokie. There's one.
One. Perfect. Absolutely.
Nice. And the other important thing as well is the ALC.
That's right. The ALC should be 0 or just flickering on. Should we test that?
Yeah, you can. Let me just. Can I do that? If I can remember how to drive it. There you go. Set for ALC.
ALC. So let's press transmit.
If you do the tune, that's it. The tune button. So yeah, we've set the radio here for 25 watts, I believe. and then the ALC is pretty much 0. And how did we adjust that? It was
via this on the right hand side of the WSJT-X software. We can adjust it by this.
Oh, you can just see it
the
coming
power
up
slider on the right. So we bring it down using the scroll wheel of the mouse, just so it just disappears.
Brilliant.
Some people say you can have it with it just, you know, with the 1 or 2 blobs flickering. Generally, I try and bring it down so it literally just disappears.
Okay. Now that's important, I think, because you don't want that to go too high, because it can put quite a little bit of strain on the radio itself.
That's right.
As well.
And it does make your signal appear much wider than it should be on the waterfall.
And just to sort of show you what we've done here, if I can remember how to do it, pressing the multifunction button here, we're using 25 watts. Now, in fact, actually earlier on we were using 5 watts and
That's
still
right.
making some contact.
Yep.
We don't recommend anyone goes with a 100-watt transceiver. We don't recommend anyone goes beyond 25 watts.
It's the AM rating of the radio on that particular frequency.
Yeah, typically. I mean, there may be some exceptions, and we're not sort of telling people, how they should operate or anything like that. But that's our recommendation. It means that the radio is not straining too hard and is having a nice, easy time. And actually, FT8 is an incredibly sort of powerful mode. It is. I mean, with 25 watts, I mean, you can really get around.
You can.
And in fact, we can possibly cut away to some of the stuff that we've been playing with to PSK Reporter.
That's right. I've been monitoring the PSK Reporter while you were here doing the filming earlier.
Okay.
And before we even started filming, and I was quite surprised, even on 5 watts, how far our signal travelled. So we'll have a look at that. That was on 40, 20 and 17, I think.
Okay.
So it's quite surprising. In fact, not that long ago, only a week ago, I was having a chat with my friend Bobby down in the Falklands.
All right.
And he suggested that we try FT8 with 1 watt to see if we could make contact with each other.
I have done that. Well, actually, that one I've not done that, but I certainly had. It was an FTDX 1200 I had here using the I think one of the. Oh gosh, I can't remember the Advantage interface.
Oh,
Absolutely
yes,
beautiful interface, and we were running 2.5 watts. And Martin was around, and we were basically using Martin's call sign. And we had a bit of a pile up with 2.5 watts on FT8. Absolutely brilliant. Martin was very confused, but I think it's a bit beyond him. But anyway, there you go. So
we're on the 20-meter band. Well, there are some signals here on the left-hand side with decoding. At the bottom of the screen, we've got the WSJT-X and what they call the wide graph.
Okay.
And we can see there's quite a number of signals that are coming through, which correspond with the signals we have on the left screen. You'll also see here we have, if I try to move one of these across, there we go, move it out of the way. We've got a green and a red sort of square.
Okay.
Now, the red square, we can move that, or we can move them independently or together, of course. But the red square is where we're going to be transmitting, or where we are transmitting, and the green square is where we're listening. So the idea being is that we don't try and transmit anywhere where somebody else is transmitting.
Okay. Makes sense.
To try and keep the traffic to a minimum.
And interestingly as well, I think this spectrum, although it looks quite wide here, this is actually a very, very tiny piece of the RF space, isn't it?
Oh, it's very
minute.
small, very small indeed. And of course, this is replicated on each band. There's data mode allocations on all the amateur bands.
Okay.
So, do you think we should give it a go to see if anybody can hear us?
Well, I don't know, but I can see an EA there, so we can go back to them. Oh, there's an SV calling.
Sugar Victor.
Yeah.
Sweden.
Go for it.
Let's give him a go. So, what we're doing, we're calling him now as he was calling CQ. We are on 431 hertz, which is where we're transmitting from.
Okay.
We can see that he is just here, which is round about 1150 odd hertz where he's transmitting. We've got it set to hold our TX frequency, so we stick to where we are in a clear bit of space.
Okay.
And we'll see if he comes back to us.
It's a bit like fishing, isn't it?
It is. He is quite a small signal though. He's a minus 19 dB, which is quite a way down in the noise.
Okay.
But that's the beauty of FT8.
And just so that if anyone asks, so we're actually running, in this particular case, it's a 49:1 unun.
Yep.
So it's a half-wave end-fed, and you guys put it up there. What is up there?
It's 20 metres of wire.
Okay.
It's quite saggy the last time I looked at it.
Oh, it's
And it's very close to the aluminium roof, so not that efficient.
right.
But we
okay.
seem to make it work quite well.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Don't
just
think
gonna, he's not seen us, I don't think, so we'll stop that. And
Okay.
we'll find somebody a bit closer, or perhaps we should call CQ.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's call CQ.
And just a little explanation of what these things here. We've got some. I had to get these back earlier on. They were actually missing, and what I did was I basically responded to someone on there, and they auto-filled.
The standard messages.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So just to let you know, it's really how FT8 or the WSJT-X software works. It works in like more like a series of steps, isn't it?
Yeah, linear steps, isn't it? So
Yeah.
you would call CQ, somebody would respond. They would usually respond with a signal report of how
Okay.
and then you would respond with your read received signal report. So your reading of theirs and passing theirs on. Then you'd both have a quick handshake, 73s, and that's it, job done.
Okay. Well, let's see. We calling CQ now?
We're calling CQ, yeah, we're calling CQ. We are in a clear part of the band. We have checked. Oh no,
Oh, someone's coming back.
somebody's coming back. What's that? That's a Fox 4 station, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there we go. So the red line here indicates that somebody's come back to our call. We've responded to them with minus 6 dB as our signal report for them.
Okay.
They should come back with a signal report to us
All
on
right.
the next over. We have to wait, I believe it's 15 seconds for
Okay.
each cycle.
And that's actually one of the things that's really quite nice about this, is
There we
it's
go.
absolutely silent. So if you're at home in the middle of your living room, you can just do this and no one
That's
has any
right.
of the wires.
There we go. So he's come back to us. He's received our report,
Okay.
given us his report. We've sent our report back, and we hopefully will get the 73s from him.
All right, okay. And then we can actually see that where it went down all the little stages of the
That's correct.
QSO.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people think this is automated, and it's not really, is it?
It's not automated because you have to be able to. I mean, I suppose the automated part is when you call the CQ, you press the CQ button, and then you have to wait until somebody responds.
Okay. What we've done then, we've connected a TS-590SG, not only to an SDR play, which was really, really simple and absolutely brilliant. It's one of the only radios that pretty much does this out of the box in such a nice way. I think it gives you quite a lot of bandwidth, I think, for what you get. The other thing is as well that this is absolutely a doddle to set up with WSJT-X. And I mean, I had a few tiny hiccups, but they were very easily overcome. A little bit of Googling and sorting, absolutely brilliant. It's been an absolute dream to set up. So is the TS-590SG still relevant in 2023?
Definitely, definitely.
I think it's a data mode, CW data mode, absolute perfect radio. So, and also all the Kenwood software's for free.
Is it?
Yeah, you can get, I think there's remote software and all.
So how long did it take you to set, because I wasn't here when you started, how long did it take to set up the radio with the laptop and the software?
Do you want me to be completely honest,
Yeah.
from learning how to do it and that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
and all the hiccups? Probably a couple of hours,
Right.
if I'm honest, in between phone calls and disturbances, but it was, once you know how to do this, and hopefully this video will kind of get you on the right sort of tracks to get it sort of done. It'll take you about 15 minutes, I think.
But of course now that you've set it all up, the software will stay on the laptop, and all you need to do is reconnect to the PC.
Yeah.
It will have a handshake with the PC, and you're away in a
Well,
matter of
I mean,
moments.
I've been flicking between the two. Just a little note, someone's bound to ask, will the SDR Play and WSJT-X work together? The answer to that is possibly, but you need some software that will split the serial port into two. I did try and do that earlier on, but unfortunately I didn't have much success. So it wasn't really what the video was about. But you know, there you go. It's up and running. Is the TS-590SG still relevant? The answer is very much so. I think that pretty much leaves us to say thanks for watching. See you next time.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye-bye.